Hello and welcome to this latest installment of Tones of the Hammer, and today we've got something quite different to what we usually do here on Tones of the Hammer, because instead of focusing on music and Hamilton's thriving scene there, we are going to take another art form on with the movie industry, find out what it means to be a producer, an actor, and what's going on in Toronto and Hamilton and the surrounding areas. And today I am joined by the very super talented, who does everything in the film industry to be honest, is Daniel Mezei. Welcome to the Tones of the Hammer couch.
Thanks, Danny. Cheers.
How's it going? Cheers. Oh yeah. Coffees. Yeah, it is daytime after all, so we'll keep it, keep it respectable.
Well, it is Friday though.
And it is Friday,
Friday.
We're all waiting for the evening, of course. The weekend is here. But Adam, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a super busy man because you do, you do everything in the film industry. We met pretty recently here at Hillrose Studios, where we host Tones of the Hammer, as well as doing music production and all that sort of stuff. We also do stuff in the film industry every now and then, and Adam was here recently to do an ADR session with Erin Pitt, another very talented actress, of course, for their new movie that is coming out very, very soon. But we will get to that shortly. But Adam, first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? How does Adam grow up and become in the film industry? You know, what brought you into it to where you are now? Tell us a bit about it.
Well, I've been doing this for going on 24 years now.
Okay.
In November, it'll be my 24th year doing films, and I started as a trained screenwriter. So I went to school to learn how to write screenplays.
Okay.
And I did that for a little while. I optioned a couple of projects, and from that I transitioned into producing.
Yeah.
So basically, going from the art and the craft of it to the businessy side of it.
Nice.
And how you can sort of cobble together production funds, push paper applications, pull together a bunch of different resources to be able to have like a team and work cohesively as a unit, and then just deal with the vicissitudes of production, which are various.
I can't imagine.
It could be fluid. I mean, take the continuum of solid to fluid, and like producing is probably somewhere in the middle.
Wow,
so sometimes it works easily, sometimes you have inertia, sometimes you have obstacles. And then 7 years ago, I moved into acting for reasons we can get into. And so if you ask around Toronto, or if you ask around the industry, people will say, you mentioned my name, you say, I'm Daniel Mezei. So people will know me as an actor.
Right.
Some people that know a little bit more know that I'm also the head man at Razzmatazz of Real, which is my production company. And we typically do 2 to 3 projects a year, and we can get into those if you want. But,
totally.
But I would say 70% of the time I'm acting, maybe 80%, and 20% of the time I'm producing. But I guess it's that triangle of art and craft and business, and I try to have my hands or my fingers in those 3 pies. Whereas I would say most actors, and it's not a criticism, it's just the nature of the beast, are good at the art and the craft side, but not at the businessy side.
Interesting.
So I think that was, as an independent filmmaker or independent artist, I think it's very important to have capabilities in all of those 3 areas.
Many strings to your bow kind of thing. Lots going off. Yeah.
So I've been doing it for 24 years, and I love it. I mean, I could do it all day long, every day. I live, eat, breathe.
Yeah,
and
of
the
course.
other 2 S words.
Of course.
We can curse on this.
Yeah, we can totally.
Okay,
anything goes on this. Anything goes. All the kids are asleep by the time we're watching this. So that's all good. Well, like I say, I can tell that you're totally immersed in that whole scene, even from the short time that we have known each other. I see on your Instagram, you're busy every day at the minute. You just got back from Los Angeles with Jesse Pomeroy, of course, who's involved in World Without End, of course. And why don't we get into that a little bit? So, World Without End, then, what is it? Tell the guys what it is. How did it all come about? Where's the conception from?
Sure. I met Jesse. I used to do film reviews. For a lot of, back in the late aughties, for a lot of different independent filmmakers. And Jesse Pomeroy had his film World Full of Nothing, WOFN. I think they call it Woofin.
Woofin. All right. Sounds like a dog documentary.
Because WWE, World Without End, is whoa, whoa.
I got you.
So this is the little onset joke, but I digress. I reviewed Jesse's World Full of Nothing back in 2008.
Yeah.
And so we had remained in touch, and I'd been in California a few times in the interim over the years, and I'd gone down to San Diego for things, and Jesse met me midway from LA to San Diego, which is Orange County, or as it's called, OC. So we'd met in OC a couple times, and I was in LA and we met there, and then I've been in California a couple of times, and I wanted to meet Jesse, and he just wasn't available. Anyway, So I would say late summer, early fall 2023, Jesse reaches out to me and he says, do you want to do a picture together?
Great.
So then I said, sure, what do you got? So he said, well, I have this sequel to World Full of Nothing called World Without End.
Interesting.
So he sent me the script and I loved it. It's a two-hander, which in industry parlance means it's just two actors in the movie, which is for an independent producer is kind of like catnip because it's very easy to do.
Yeah, of course. And I imagine that
easier.
Yeah, but I imagine the pressure on you guys as actors is unbelievable to keep that going, right?
Yeah, we'll get into the specifics of why that was. Yeah. And so we basically cobbled together this entire, I mean, I had my existing team of production people. Jesse runs a company called Hillrose Street in the US. And he wanted to shoot a movie in Toronto because he had been up here a couple of times and he loves the city. And when he had come up here with his dad, I took them around and we went to a couple of pubs and we did some stuff together, which was great. So we'd had these fond memories of the city. So it was my background with him of having reviewed his film, plus the fact that he was here in Toronto and he had loved the city, and then I was available and he was available and the script really rocked. Yeah. It didn't go through too many revisions other than for some branding issues that we had to excise from the script just for obvious reasons. Yeah. And then essentially I had the film ready to shoot before Christmas. Wow. And then it was just a march until the end of December until he had flown up and then everybody was ready to go. And in 2 weeks' time, we had this film in the can, as we call it. Nice. And then in 4 weeks or 5 weeks' time, Jesse had it cut. And in 6 weeks' time, he had it locked. Wow, man. And then, so he had set himself the arbitrary deadline of August the 1st, which the day after we're having a screening here in Toronto at the TIFF building. Excuse me, what am I saying? That's a completely different date. He had set himself the date of August the 1st, and at the end of August,
that's it.
Brain fart.
There's all sorts going off. I get it, man. Yeah, don't you worry.
So the end of the month. So essentially, in less than a year's time, we have this film shot.
Wow,
cut,
man.
Sound design. Yes. Which is why we were here at Halo.
Yes.
For ADR. And
of course.
I was in Los Angeles for remixing. Yeah. And then by the end of August, what does that tally to? It's like, I think 10 months time, we have the film ready to go.
You guys, man, you're powerhouses, man.
Packaged,
I'm stressed out just listening here right
ready
now,
to deliver. Yeah. And I like the fast lane.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it keeps you on your toes, and I imagine as well. I think it's same being a musician. It also keeps that creative flow going as well, I think, rather than sat there stressing out that you should be doing something, actually just getting out and doing it is half the task.
Newton's third law of thermodynamics.
Yes,
a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest, right?
So true. Yeah. Wow, that's such a short time. So for us mere mortals that don't exist in the film industry too much, I know you just delved into it a little bit there, but what is the timeline of like a usual film? So I guess somebody comes with an idea and then it goes to script writing. So just tell us, I know you mentioned it in brief there, but what is usually how do these things come about? Because as someone who's never worked on them, I just love film and everything to do with it. But I always imagine the process was like years long sometimes, when you're creating these things. So,
well, it depends what jurisdiction you actually make the film in. The UK, Canada, countries of that sort. There's a lot of public money that goes into culture. Right. And so grants are offered within various windows. And in Canada, that generally occurs every 6 months, I would say. Sometimes I think every quarter, but every 6 months for larger tranches of the cash. So not everybody is independently wealthy or not everybody has equity to tap into. Yeah. World Without End is an independently financed production. So between Jesse and I and a couple of other sources, we've put together our budget. Yeah. So we didn't have to wait for any grants or applications to be approved.
So you can be like on the floor running, right? Yeah.
But most people, the timeline, there's 3 phases typically of production. It's principal photography and post. So pre-production can take sometimes a year, sometimes longer. It depends on how long it takes to cobble together the financing. Yeah. And it's also a scheduling issue with respect to actors. Like if you have your preferred talent that you want to put into the piece. Yeah. And not every film is just a cast of 2. Sometimes you'll have a cast of 25. Yeah.
And when actors are like this, are they usually, if you're working on a movie at a certain time, are you exclusive to that movie a lot of the time, or can you work with other movies, or is it different for every kind of movie sort of thing?
Well, then the distinction is whether somebody is in the union or not in the union.
Gotcha. Okay.
So in Canada, we have a union. It's called ACTRA, which is the Association of Canadian Television and Radio something or other.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
TRA. Radio, whatever.
Yeah.
ACTRA.
Yeah.
So that's the union that we have in Canada if you're a performer.
Yes.
Or we have non-union talent. And there's a lot of non-union productions that go on in the GTHA, otherwise known as the Greater Toronto Hockey Area.
Yeah.
I like to say hockey. So there's a lot of non-union stuff going on there. So a union production needs to be filed with the union, and then there are lead times to have that approved by the union. Right. And then there are various inclusions that need to be sent to the union for the cast. There are fringes that need to be paid and percentages that need to be paid and insurances that need to be locked in, or if they're stunts, there's like another component. So that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, totally.
And so that's all built into the pre-production process.
Yeah.
For a two-hander like ours, like World Without End, it wasn't an arduous process because I'm quite conversant how to deal with the union, and I'm known there for doing small productions.
Great.
And then the union has different programs, and there's different stuff, and you deal with a business representative. I won't get into the details, but
there's a lot to it, right? Yeah, red tape.
It takes a little bit, of time.
Yeah,
it takes like 2 months, 3 months just for that step alone.
Yeah.
So the financing, the union side, and then scheduling.
Yeah.
So if some actors are not available, you want them, or you've committed to them, or if they're name talent, as we call it, in which name talent generally brings in financing.
Of course,
or it brings in other talent that want to work with said star.
Yeah.
So to get that sort of in the crosshairs, you've got to wait for them to be available. Sometimes they are available, sometimes they're not. That could also inject some delays into your project.
Yeah.
This is all happening during pre-production.
Yeah.
And then you've got to set the schedule, and then there are locations. So depending on how long we shot over 2 weeks,
right?
But some films take a month to shoot.
Right, interesting.
They generally try to compress that shooting period so they can save funds.
Yeah.
And then they try to do very aggressive shooting schedules to the tune of shooting 15 pages a day, which is it's unprecedented.
I would have. Yeah, I always thought that the shooting process was the longest process there. So wow, that blows my mind. Yeah,
it depends on the sophistication of the film.
Yeah,
if you're Ridley Scott, and
of course,
and you're shooting a film in Malta, or you're shooting a film in in Italy, then obviously they could go 2 months, 3 months, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, a small independent film, and every day obviously has its share of costs.
Yeah.
You try to compress the time frame, and then so once principal photography ends, then you get into the post-production period. That could take months.
Yeah.
I've been on films even as a non-union actor before I joined the union. The production process, the post-production process can take months, a year, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Like imagine waiting 2 years to see the film.
Yeah, totally.
So it can happen. It doesn't happen often, but it happens. So our post-production timeline, again, unprecedented, because Jesse also happens to be an editor and he's an Emmy-nominated sound designer for Cobra Kai.
Great.
Which is into its 6th season.
Yeah.
So if anybody watches Cobra Kai, that's Jesse Pomeroy's handiwork.
Pomeroy.
And so he did it in record time.
Right.
And because, we're hot to trot and we wanted to get it out there, and because we have other things going on, and we want to free the schedule up, plus we want people to see it.
Totally, yeah.
And, that's the great thing about being an independent producer, independent filmmaker, is you get so excited about just the whole endeavor, the whole process. So you just wanted to get it done and get it out there.
Totally. And you want to see the final product sort of thing.
It's not a job,
that's it. It's your art form, right? It's your art form, yeah.
So that's basically how World Without End worked, and any future project that we do as a collab, that we're probably going to shoot in a very similar style. Our business, very much like the music business, but film especially, it's a relationships business.
Of course, yeah.
And you always have to sort of tend to your relationships. Dare I say, fertilize your relationships.
Totally, yeah.
You have to be very conscious of your P's and Q's. You have to, there's so many different things. It's pretty much common sense, but keep your word and obviously pay your bills, and actors get paid on time, and hence why
that's all just as you say, like the music business as well, that all ties in with your reputation as a production company, and I'm sure like attractive future work, and like you say, it's all about like repping the industry, I imagine, right?
It's independent film, like for example, big budget film, Hollywood film, studio pictures.
Yeah.
There are some stars who, for whatever reason, can act, irascible. But independent film is a no asshole zone. It's just like you're not going to get anywhere being a jackass. So it's very,
everybody's just trying to make their best work, right? Yeah.
It's literally. We call it fast family. That's kind of the little sort of the little. We call it fast family, or it's like it's intimacy between strangers.
Yeah.
However you want to phrase it, and this kind of this very rapid falling in love sort of process happens in record time.
Yeah, because I imagine, especially when you're working on something, especially if it's close to your heart, you've wrote it and you've had so much to do with that process. I imagine as a whole cast and crew and everything, you get so close to each other, making this amazing piece of art that you're all putting your 100,000% into. It must be tough to like finish up produce it in a way. Yeah,
especially if the role's very impactful.
Yeah.
Or, I've been on sets where you get enormously emotional. And, obviously there's a craft as an actor in terms of how you get there and how you do that.
Yeah.
But it's body shuddering in some instances.
Yeah.
It's really earth shattering stuff. And like to walk away from that set sometimes takes a little bit of time to come down from. And so on this set, on World Without End, I think we just had such a wonderful esprit de corps, a wonderful dynamic between everybody on the cast and the crew. Yeah. We had a beautiful sort of mini rap party on the day at the location. And
so it's not all work; it's some play sometimes, right? Good to hear.
See, what was great about this is because I know the director.
Yeah,
we're friends already prior to.
Yeah,
and Erin Pitt is Brad Pitt's cousin. Just kidding. So Erin Pitt is a friend of mine from my acting school, from LB Acting Studio, which is where I train, one of the places where I train. And so I know Erin for several years.
Yeah.
And when we were looking for some actors to play the role of Skylar in World Without End, Jesse had leaned on me, obviously, to suggest a few names, and we had a couple of actors that read for us, and they just weren't right for specific reasons. And Erin submitted a really, really good tape, and Jesse liked her off the jump. Just loved her look. He loved how she acted, and so we made her an offer with her agent, and she very graciously accepted. And now she's going to have like a wonderful film to her credit, which we were firmly convinced, after seeing this and having just gotten back from LA and watching this film a couple times, it's going to be a career changer for her. It's going to be a game changer for her. Possibly for me, but I'm just the guy that read with her. They needed somebody to come in and like read the thing with her, right?
Not at all. Not at all. I've seen the clips while we were working here, and it looks amazing. It looks so amazing. I'm sure it's going to be great for both of you. And we're excited to see it. So we touched on it a little bit, and I want to get into World Without End. But before we do, I want to get into a bit more about you, Adam. So yourself, where are your influences from in your work? Where? I again, as a musician, I don't know how. I'm sure you get influenced by directors and different pieces of work. What's your influence? What's your kind of thing that you like to get involved with doing when you do it?
I lived in the Czech Republic for 6 years.
Wow.
I lived in Prague for 6 years in the in the late aughts.
Yeah.
And I, prior to that too, I'm not a film school graduate. I'm an autodidact as a college filmmaker, and it was a combination of me reading a plethora of film books, watching a shit ton of DVDs, and at the time we had what was known special features on the DVD. So I used to watch those, and I used to watch the film back, listen to the cast, listen to the crew, listen to the text, talking about like what went into the sausage, and I taught myself about films that way. And I went I'm kind of that personality that just went very, very deep down the rabbit hole. And so all the European filmmakers, like Luc Besson, Krzysztof Kieślowski, and I love Hong Kong Wong Kar-wai, 1980s Hong Kong action films. I love the auteurs, Robert Altman, even some Canadian auteurs like Atom Egoyan and David Cronenberg, and we can go run down the list of filmmakers who I really respect and admire. I just love the kind of work that they do. I love how they pull together from so many different influences. European films really are they tend to be braver. They tend to be a little bit more risk taking.
Yeah.
They tend to be a little more unvarnished. It's not to say that North American actors are not as prepared to do things like that, but European actors really go there. And when I was living in Europe, I used to watch a lot of this kind of stuff, and just the types of conversations that you would get into. So I guess like I love 1990s indie. So anything from the 90s is really well shot on celluloid, on 35 millimeter, is really good quality cinema. I recently attended, I'm a member of TIFF in high standing, and I used to go, they have a section that's ongoing or just came to the end of, it's called Women in Action. So I had a chance to watch La Femme Nikita again by Luc Besson. You had a chance to watch Atomic Blonde again with Charlize Theron. And obviously Atomic Blonde's from the early aughties, but there's a lot of like gorgeous action pictures from the 90s, and like In the Mood for Love and 2048 and all of these wonderful films like Wong Kar-wai, I just dropped that name again, or The Decalogue by Kieślowski, or Three Colors, red, white, and blue, white, and red, which were the colors of the French flag. Like I just would watch that stuff over and over and over again. You know, or even Guillermo del Toro, who shoots here in Hamilton all the time. You know, The Sound of Water and things like that. Different types of films. Like I love stuff like that.
Amazing.
You know? So anybody that just, I guess the
kind of goes against the grain in a way.
You know, like Del Toro had this whole scrapbook for the original Blade, which he shot in Prague with Wesley Snipes, and like the guy goes through like pages and pages of the scrapbook, and it's like he's got like very vivid and detailed ideas of the things that he wants to see in his film, and he's like even Jesse can be this way too. Like he's very specific what he wants to see, and this is you know the different props that he wants to have, and like so I love guys like that totally get into it.
Totally. That's so cool to see, because I think every creative industry has that as well. Where you mentioned you're not a film school grad, and I think a lot of the time that's kind of the way, because I think sometimes people that are film school grads and taught in a certain way, it kind of keeps them in their lane in a way. Whereas I think like you said, where you've got this obsession with it, like as yourself, whether it's music or whether it's film, you know, it gives you that drive to push even further, you know, further into that rabbit hole and that further interest, and develop your skills of like, oh, how do they do this? You know, what makes this film so special? You know, I think that's so magical to see. Yeah. So
when you have to, when there's an imperative or like a must. Then you find a way.
Totally.
If it's like if it's school or if it's homework, perhaps you find ways to like shirk the duties or just slack off or take your time. I've always found that like my stacking order is like right now. You know, like people ask me to do stuff, I generally try to get it done quickly. I think time is a very precious thing. You don't know how, I mean, it sounds a bit morbid to say it, but like you really don't know how long you have.
Totally. And you know, agree with that.
We operate with the presumption that, you know, tomorrow's going to be like a full day of activities, but you don't know if you're going to make it to tomorrow. And so rather than just like dilly dally or just, you know, procrastinate, just get it done, get her done, let's get it done. I just, and Jesse and I, we're both Scorpios, so this is probably like a default in the design. You know, like we call it way of the Shaolin. That's how we describe it. So like obviously there's something wrong with us, but we generally like to get things done like very, very quickly. So I think that's another one of the reasons why this entire project got completed so quickly, because we just
hardworking guys.
We got stuff coming down the pike. We just want to get it done.
Totally, and it's a great piece of art. And let's get into it. So we got World Without End, which is the sequel to, what was the first one called?
World Full of Nothing.
World Full of Nothing, of course. So tell us a quick synopsis. What's the movie all about?
So in World Full of Nothing, there is a captor.
Yes.
The character is called the Captor in World Without End. And there is a captor in World Full of Nothing who you see in the film, who is prepping to abduct the protagonist from World Full of Nothing. You don't see it. It doesn't transpire. It's not successful. But in World Without End, the captor actually does succeed in abducting Skylar Watkins, played by Erin Pitt. And then the entire film is an exploration of the obsession that he has with this girl, and then the pathology that the captor clearly has. I play 7 different characters in it.
Wow.
And they all look and sound different.
Yeah.
And we were very meticulous in terms of finding the right looks for the guy. And so it's very exciting. Like if you were to cut all these 7 guys up into 7 different pieces, you'd see 7 different reels.
I got you.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
So this all
that must be amazing for you as an actor to do something like that. You know, it really gives you a chance to explore all sorts of different characters, right?
Yeah, I'm a character guy. I mean, that's like that's generally like that's my shtick. Like I like to I like to put on the accents, change my hair color. You know, maybe tack on some weight, take off some weight. So that's generally how I like to go.
Great.
And so this film, and Jesse knew that. So this film gave me like a ripe opportunity to just sink my fangs into this type of guy. But the film, the plot of the film is generally an exploration of what is going on in the location with the captive and the captor, and the psychological exploration and the underpinnings of that. And it has some wonderful comedic moments, even in the melancholy. And there's some meme things in there, which I think like are t-shirtable, you know, if I can say it like that. And you'll see it yourself when you come for the screening.
Very excited. Thank you for inviting us.
I mean, like you'll confirm whether or not I'm bang on or
totally.
or if I'm off. But that's generally what happens. And then we have a sequel to World Without End called World in My Eyes, WIME.
Okay. Wow.
So WIME is we had a notion to shoot it in the fall. It's going to be replaced by another film. So we likely in 2025 will be shooting WIME as well.
Great. Wow. So
and it's much more hard hitting than
exciting
WWOE was.
Yeah.
So in terms of the let's go from this way. So the graph, it goes up like that, right? So in terms of the intensity. So by the time we get to the third film in the trilogy,
it's gonna be really exciting stuff.
Hit the solar
man.
plexus.
I'm very excited. Thank you. We feel so privileged at Halo. You've invited us to the film premiere, which is in late August, of course, which is it's going to be so amazing. Again, I think exactly like you said, the whole journey of, I'm sure the whole cast and crew they all input their part, and then the premiere must be so amazing for everybody to see, because you see the final cut of it's kind of like your guys in the top end of the production. It's your little baby, and then sharing it out. You know how much that must feel so cool for you guys, right? When you eventually see critics and reactions to the movie. So
I like to take care of my team. You know, my guys, girls on my team, on the Razzmatazz team Raz, as we like to call it. Like there are some swappable parts just because of scheduling, and people get hired for bigger things, and we get it. Like no one's going to turn down like a massive paycheck.
Of course,
But we generally like to work with the same people. I love the stability or the consistency of having like a stable team. So this is kind of we're actually calling the screening a cast and crew appreciation screening.
Great,
It just so happens that there's some other VIPs like yourself and other industry people that are going to be coming. I won't get into the details of who's going to be there, but some pretty high rollers are going to be there.
Yeah, great.
And we're trying to go a little bit. I mean, not sub Rosa entirely because we're mentioning it here on the cast, but it's not necessarily going to be advertised. So it's by our SVP only, which is why we sent letters out. And I think it's important to show the cast like what they've done. Obviously, this doesn't happen too often. Of projects of this ilk where you know the filmmakers can hold on to the footage, like for months on end, and no one gets a chance to see it. But you know, it's going to be beautiful. It's a pre-TIFF, which is the film festival here in Toronto. It's a pre-TIFF extravaganza. You'll tell me if I'm right. I think it's going to be
totally. I'm so excited to see it. From what from the little bit that we saw here, and I guess what's the movie's done and everything. So what's the plan with releasing the movie? Is it you? I think you mentioned before to me that we're debuting it at different festivals and stuff. I imagine. Yeah.
I'm convinced that we're going to get a good offer for this film.
Great.
And so
I love to see. I just love it, man.
We already see like half a dozen soft offers. They were not to our liking for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of minutia that goes into signing a distribution deal, and then there's a lot of deliverables, documents, paper chase, all that jazz. We have a lot of different options given our budget and given who's in it and the genre. It's a psychological thriller, come horror picture. So it's the kind of, we like to think it's the kind of film that like 4 teens on a Saturday night, ordering a couple of pizzas would want to watch as they flick through the different sort of posters on one of the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
So it's, for that reason, we're very confident that we're going to be able to sell it. And we don't know yet how long we'll want the festival run to happen, although it might be good for our eventual publicity to have the film go to several festivals and just screened in front of larger audiences. We may not go down that road depending on what transpires. It is not officially something that we're opening up for business at the screening, although there will be some people there that may want to grab it right off the jump.
Totally.
So if we get a couple of calls after the screening, that'll be great. And there'll be a Q&A after, so you'll be able to ask some questions as well for half an hour. So we're quite confident, and obviously it wouldn't be too hubristic or sort of high on the hog saying we're going to definitely do amazing business with it, but
no, but that's what it's about. Like I say, it's so great to see, go out and get it, guys. It's and it's so good to just meet people that totally believe in what you're doing. It's obviously from you and Jesse, as we said how hard working you are, and you're obviously so passionate about what you're doing. It's great to see. So trust me, we're all behind you on that, and I'm sure people who are watching Tones of the Hammer right now are totally behind you with your story, 100%.
Oh, that's great.
I guess you mentioned as well you have a production company, right? Razzmatazz Productions, yeah. And so the idea of Tones of the Hammer, Adam, it's talking about basic creative industries in Hamilton, surrounding areas, and how things could be better, how they were worse. How have you being across all these spectrums of productions and acting and everything in between, how do you find the scene as a production company? Is there any struggles as a production company that you guys go on? I know you mentioned like funding from different councils and stuff. You've got ties with Hollywood in Los Angeles and stuff, with Jesse and stuff. How are things in Toronto, Hamilton? How do they compare to the US? The state of things here with the acting and film industry. So I know there's been a big boost in Hamilton, especially of productions coming this way, sort of thing.
I think the general rule is that if you want to shoot in Hamilton, your location costs, if you're renting locations, and for kit, and for people, will be lower than if you're hiring exclusively Toronto people.
Right. Even though it's 50 kilometers down the road or whatever, And
Hamilton's got these places that Toronto doesn't have anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these like former gutted out industrial applications. These really gritty looking former warehouses and tunnels and foundries.
I saw just today the place called the Cotton Factory, I think. It used to be an old mill that's just turned into 160 different creative businesses.
They've got chambers.
Incredible.
So there's a lot of that going on in Hamilton, and the people that own those places are leveraging it very well, and they're drawing in interest from people, not just from Toronto, but people from across the province, and possibly even people from other places in Canada, and maybe even some Americans. So we love shooting in Hamilton. We've done a lot of projects in Hamilton. In fact, if I really want to break it down, in 2023, every single one of our films that we shot, Howling Circus, Amalgamation, and World Without End, which we shot in early 2024, and I'm missing one project. And spring is passing. We shot all of those films in Hamilton, all of them. No Toronto locations at all. I mean, obviously, as an actor, I've done a lot of stuff in Toronto, but so Hamilton's great for that. Toronto's not as friendly for that. So Hamilton Film Office are a lot more sort of cooperative when it comes to film permits, and I think Hamiltonians, they're already a lot more. They're not as uptight or process oriented.
A lot more down to earth.
They understand about art and music and all these wonderful things and culture. So it's your likelihood of doing a really good project for a lot lower cost if you're an independent producer is really higher in Hamilton.
It's great. I moved to Canada in September, and I chose Hamilton. Everybody that I tell, why have you moved to Hamilton? Why have you moved to Hamilton? And I wish I could just get on a soapbox and scream it in the town centre of Toronto, in the city centre, and just say, Hamilton's got so much to offer. There's all these cool things going off, just literally around the corner from us here on John Street. I think a few years ago, they were filming like The Boys, the series The Boys and stuff like that. So it's got this amazing creative thing to go in. And you've been in the industry 25 years. So is there a swing towards Hamilton these days rather than Toronto, would you say?
I think as Toronto becomes more busy and it's become busier by the quarter.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to be there because, in the film business, perhaps more so than in the music industry, the clock is kind of God, as we call it. So you need to obey the clock. Yeah, totally. And obviously being stuck on the road or like even parking, something as mundane as parking, like parking issues in Toronto. Yeah. Like, I was going to use a word it's probably not politically correct to use, but like it's beyond. Yeah. Whereas Hamilton's not as crazy on that score. Things like that, like the basic logistics, the guts of the thing, like the small little picayune details which you don't typically think about, like as a person, working for a wage. Yeah. There are little things that go into the
everything
production
costs,
process.
right? Yeah. There's all sorts of costs and time. Time restrictions, of course, on these things.
It's cool. We hang out here. I mean, like I come and hang out here just like with my friends. And, my costume designer lives a couple blocks away.
Right, great.
A shout out to Pamela Blackwood Marquez and Roger Marquez. Like they're a couple blocks away on Herkimer. Yeah. So like we're down here a lot for different stuff and. Driving down to fetch people at Buffalo Airport, they fly in from different spots, so we just jump across the border, States, go and fetch them from the airport, drive back up to Toronto. That happens sometimes too. So this kind of like western edge of Lake Ontario. Yeah, there's the little I guess from here the little golden horseshoe thing. Like
totally, and Hamilton's kind of the center of that. Toronto's just further around, like you say, if you're trying to get to, just Niagara Falls across the border and everything. Yeah, Hamilton's kind of that center point, right, of where it is. Yeah, but that's it's so fascinating. Because I wondered with that, like I say, I always wondered with the film industry kind of shifting towards Hamilton a little bit more. It's getting busy in Hamilton with the film industry. I wondered if the same thing would happen with like the music industry, but like you just said, there's a whole lot more cogs to the wheel in the film industry, of course, and time and budget restrictions and blah 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 sort of stuff. So that's answered my question there, 100%.
Like the people that are in Toronto are the agents, yes, the casting directors, the big production houses, the sound stages, the big kit houses like White's, for example. And then, most of the talent lives in the greater Toronto and Hamilton area just because you need to be
in the center of things.
We don't do the in-person auditions any longer, maybe for round 2 or 3 or for, as we call it, chemistry reads. Yeah. Generally now actors are submitting through what's called the self-tape. So which is what I was doing in that room before I came to sit here. I was just responding to my agent because something came through for a commercial. So that's our first step. So you need to be in the area because you need to get to these places. Yeah. But although there are some agents that don't live in Toronto and they do pretty well, having said that. But as a producer, it's a bit of a haul for people, especially if you hire people in Toronto. And there are a lot of sort of details when you hire people from Toronto to work in Hamilton, and there's extra costs associated with that if you work through the union. But Hamilton's really where it's at. Like, I'm perfectly fine. We're going to be shooting our next film in Hamilton, just up a couple blocks up the street, literally. Yeah. So I'm perfectly happy shooting my movies in Hamilton all the time.
We talked about, your production company, Razzmatazz Productions.
Razzmatazz of Real.
Razzmatazz of Real. Sorry, there you go.
R-O-R, yeah.
R-O-R, go and check it out. Yeah. Some cool projects coming up, of course.
Yeah.
.com. And I suppose so. We touched on stuff, unionization and stuff. What things do you think could be improved in the film industry sector here and around Toronto in that sort of way? Is there obstacles that you think could come down that could make things a lot easier to boost things?
One of the things, I mean, I can speak as an actor. Generally, when studios shoot projects in Canada, in the 3 major places where they will shoot are Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. Vancouver is very convenient because it's on the same time zone as California. Toronto is good because it can double as New York and Philadelphia and Chicago. Montreal is good for other reasons. Generally, when productions come up, and there are a variety of big ones, and you can go onto Actra's website, and there's a little link there called What's Shooting. You can see all the different projects that are shooting in the city. There's like 5-6 pages. You know? So typically those productions come with their casts locked. They've done the bulk of the casting for the principal roles and the lead roles in the US. So the roles that Toronto-based actors or Canadians will get in productions, TV series primarily, or films, are the small, little, idiosyncratic, quirky little roles, soup to nuts. Like it runs the gamut of you're the waiter bringing like Robert De Niro his coffee to you're the kook in the asylum who's having a conniption and like frothing at the mouth and ranting and raving, or they need very specific looks. Like they need a dude who's super bearded and looks like he's got like tats all over the show. So they need somebody like that, and they'll do a casting for that, or they need somebody who's what we call a person of color, so they'll need somebody like that. And obviously Toronto being the multicultural city that it is, we have a lot of different types of people. So we'll get the small parts. So you asked me about problems. So like so we'll get that. I mean, it's a good payday for anybody, especially for people in Canada. But we don't get like the meaty stuff. So that's one of the drawbacks. That's the trade-off. So if Hollywood comes up here and shoots stuff, then they bring production funds. It's done on a much more compressed schedule than to this point. In other words, they used to shoot here for like 30 days. Now they try to do it in 22 with crazy shooting schedules. Like I said, shooting 15 pages in a day or some crazy amount. But the complaint I'm making is that we don't get a chance to do like really meaty stuff. We'll do for pay stuff, like a job stuff. And it's, there's no small role. There's only small actors as the aphorism goes. So we'll do it and it's fun because that's what we're training for. We don't get a chance to do the big stuff. So that's one little issue. Also, some of the big government organizations, and I won't mention any names in Canada, are not very indie friendly.
Right. Okay.
So like the whole sort of like the enthusiasm which you see in the United States around film festivals like South by Southwest or Sundance or Tribeca, like those types of film festivals, they're much more amenable to independent filmmakers and give a platform to those people. And there's a lot of gems that you can unearth at festivals like that. And we don't necessarily have a similar attitude towards indie in Canada.
Interesting.
It's deemed to be kind of like the stepchild, or it's deemed to be something not as professional as something much more sophisticated, and or something that has government money injected into it, and that comes either as a grant or as tax credits for spending a certain amount in labor, or both, whatever. So that stuff is like the acceptable indie, but the guerrilla indie, or the swashbuckling, as I like to call it, indie, like what Razzmatazz does, that's not necessarily deemed to be as professional, which is why we as a team were so intent on being in those sophisticated venues for our screenings to push the agenda that this is valuable stuff.
The quality's there. The quality's there.
It's entertaining. It's not just like, I use that word, it's not sausage. Right? Because some of these TV series and things that you see on the streaming platforms, they're sausagey and they're just filler. Like I actually was coming back on the flight, from LA, and there's a guy, like he's watching a fucking movie and he's typing on it. He's got the Wi-Fi thing, the satellite there, and he's typing, and he's like, there's something happening on the screen, and he goes like that, and he's watching, and then he goes back to here. And like, I just like, how do you do that? But anyway, that's what they shoot for today.
Totally.
So the writing is very, very pared down.
Right.
It's Spartan. And there's a lot of repetition so that they account for this phenomenon of what I just did there. So that like they got to drop the names of the protagonists. So so the person's like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. So so that's kind of, this is what they shoot, for the streaming platform. So I'm a little bit sort of, critical of that, but you've got to work within the confines. You can't just rail against stuff and not do stuff.
100%.
And another thing is actors in Toronto don't necessarily make a living entirely on the proceeds of their acting jobs. So everybody's kind of hyphenated or doing a bunch of different stuff, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you can't really be good at something if you don't engross yourself in it, in my understanding of the cosmos.
Yeah.
So if you're not all in, you're kind of half in or half out or whatever percentage, you can't really be good at it, you know? Whereas like you find, and obviously the United States is a 10 times bigger population in place.
Yeah.
You got these types of these talents that are like, they're all the fuck in. They're like raw dog, baby.
Yeah,
Like, So they're all in, and they do better for that reason. So, you know, if you're willing to commit and put yourself on the line, I think the propensity of you becoming a bigger success is there. So in Toronto, you don't get like there's a lot of that, you know, like the typical question you'll get at a confab or like one of these drinky poo things, like these happy hour dealios that you see at TIFF or one of these festivals. It's like, did you get your grant yet? Or like that's the thing. It's like you can't do a film unless you have a grant.
Yeah.
Right? Unless you have like a 25K or 35K grant. Yeah. You can't do anything because then you're not legit, or worse, you don't have the money. You need the 35 grand, right? And again, I'm not knocking people for not having 35 grand. Just to say, like, unless you do it, then you can't. You can't bootstrap it. Like, and you just don't necessarily see people willing to, you know, put their balls on the table to do something. And I found, like, having been a festival goer for at least 2 decades, like around the world. You meet these guys at these festivals, and you know, whether it's the Berlinale or whether you meet people at Sundance, you meet people at smaller festivals around the world. Like you just, and these people can be from Australia, from the UK, they can be from other European countries or from the States. They just go for it a lot more, you know. And so we don't have that necessarily that go for it mentality.
Interesting.
And so we stay smaller, psychologically.
Yeah.
And these effects are very pernicious because, like, it's a limiting belief. Yeah, I find. Sorry for getting philosophical, but
no, totally. This is
it's a limiting belief. If you have that attitude of, I need to wait for this to happen, and then this happens in sequence. And so if I don't have that, then I can't do it. Yeah. So I'm gonna go back and, I mean, what's the stereotype? I'm gonna go back and sling coffee, or I'm gonna go for my jobby job, or like I'm gonna be way down on the crew list, like I'm third AD, or I'm doing some micro component in some post-production facility, which again is fine. People need to make a living.
If you want to do,
It's like a casting director told me once. It's like, either you're in or you're out. You're not half in and half out, and you can't really expect to be a success, I think, in any effort if you don't just go all in. And maybe that's just my personality defect, but. And that's how everything that I am today is because I've had that attitude of just like, I want to go for it. And so when you have that attitude and when you sort of broadcast that courage, or if you broadcast that desire, it's very contagious. And I find that especially crew people that have worked on sets where everything is being counted and meticulously accounted for, and you have to watch your P's and Q's, and you can't just speak your mind, and you can't like say dick jokes or like whatever it is, right? Like you got to be, you know, whatever. It's, I'm not saying it's, you got on a bigger operation, there's a lot of individuals.
Of course, you have to, politics involved.
You've got to account for, you got to boil it down to the lowest common denominator, but they appreciate that. Yeah. And this is why we have a lot of people, a lot of repeat performances and a lot of repeats in Razzmatazz, because they like I like taking care of my people, and that's the kind of show we put on, and so that's what we've been proving over the couple of years that we've been doing, like some really interesting projects.
So it's all about that risk taking, basically. Trying to I think, like you said, people not be so not so comfortable in their little bubble, basically. Let's try something and take the risk. That's so great to see. And as you say, you've got all this experience, Adam, racking up 20-25 years of doing all this stuff. So for anybody that's trying to get into this sort of stuff, what would you be a number one advice that you'd give to people for that sort of thing, if they're wanting to go out there and seize either, work for a production company, even start in a production company, whatever? What's your advice, would you say? What have you learned along the way?
I think it's important to experiment and do stuff and make stuff. Make good stuff, make half good stuff, make shit stuff, make stuff, and then try and iterate and fail, and then really see what you're good at. Some people go to film school and they learn all aspects of front and behind camera. They kind of, the film school is intended to train you in all facets of the filmmaking process, and so from pre-production to principal photography, from budgeting, from post-production, all these aspects. So you find your niche. Definitely make your own shit. Lay pipe.
Yeah.
Because you need to have an inventory of things that you've done because people need to see it.
Yeah.
Start building your filmography. Start building your IMDb profile. Start having some credits. Credits are important. Start building your resume.
Yeah.
Start networking, but not like there's like networking, and then there's like swine behavior. So to wit, you know, if you're going to a happy hour, you know, sponsored by Grolsch or whatever at TIFF.
Yeah.
TIFF is not designed for you to take your one sheets, your headshots, your 3x5 cards, your business cards, your whatever other tchotchkes that you present to that's TIFF is not designed for that.
Yeah.
TIFF is designed to watch movies. If you're an industry person, to go to the events, to go to the conferences, to go to the speaking events, to take notes. Yes, obviously you have cards just in case you need people want to reach you, but no hard sell.
Yeah.
TIFF is not just filmmakers. No hard sell.
Yeah.
Nice and easy. Nice and easy.
That's so so interesting to hear, because that's very like that's
just make the relationships.
Totally.
Because you know yourself, right? Like you spot people, you recognize them. You're very intuitive. You know when people are cool, and you know when people are aggressive. Yeah. And you're definitely going to stay the fuck away from people that are pushing too hard. Yeah. And you might not tell them fuck off, but you'll say your body language.
Take
will
the hint, sort of thing. Yeah.
So
and that's half of the deal. Like I said, in networking and everything. I think that's sometimes I think it's the saddest thing, because you get somebody that's so talented, but they just don't know how to, they don't know how to hang out with people, they don't know how to network, they don't know how to respect people's boundaries, and know that process of like being pushy without being obviously pushy, I guess is the way I would put it. That's same in the music, same in both industries.
Ambition is good. Raw ambition is good too. I think mercenary behavior, no good. And then obviously being an asshole, verboten. And then the subcategories is not showing up for shit on time, flake jobs, telling somebody you'll do something and then you don't do it. That's like anathema in the film business, also in music, but musicians tend to be a little bit more quirky in that regard.
Yeah, totally. It's part of the process a bit more. It
actually reminds me of something else. It's like people, I'll get back to the point about how to prepare for advice to young filmmakers. I mentioned this this notion of the triangle where you have art, craft, business, and having your fingers in all of those three pies. But if you're like a really good actor, like prodigious, and I've seen many over the last few years that are just like smashingly good. You don't get all of the gifts. You get some of the gifts. And in the areas where you're not good, you have to sort of strengthen or paper over or avoid, So like the line on actors is they're emotional, they're temperamental, they're alcoholics, they're drug abusers, they're any of the vices, they're oversexed, whatever the fuck it is.
That's what's going off in Toronto then, is it?
I heard late Sidney Pollack, director, talk about this. It's like, but what do you want? Because if you do have the ability, see the thing that people have to realize is when you're watching that big screen, what you're watching, you're as an audience member, you're so in it, it's actually happening for you. And who made that reality happen? Those performers made you believe that what's going on over there, like that rape is happening. And you're feeling horrible and disgusting, and you're having a negative emotional reaction to that because of the power of those actors to be able to perform that scene. But nothing about that scene is real. Nothing in that scene happened.
It's a magical.
But the craft comes into play where for the actors that are performing that, for them it was. But for you, you're in it. Okay, so you're watching that and going, and you're paying your $16, $20, whatever dollars to watch that. people have to understand that if you do want to watch something where actors have that ability to convince you through their artistry that is what is happening, you have to also accept the fact that there are going to be parts of their personality that you will find objectionable or that you won't like. Yeah. Because you can't have it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my advice to people, to parents who have children that want to get into this is, like, don't do that. It's not good. Like all these dissuading remarks, right? It's like, what are you going to do? You're not going to make a living doing that. Yeah. Have something in your back pocket. Have a portable, career. Go to school for.
I think every creative person's
get your engineering degree or. Become an accountant or like, I don't know how I feel about that, because people can waste a lot of fucking time studying stuff that they're not designed in their walking water bottle of biochemical reactions to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so they end up spending a fuck ton of time just like, I'm swearing a lot now.
It's passion. Yeah. It's passion. That's what I like to see.
So, doing stuff that they're not designed to do.
Yeah.
So you have to accept the artist, the musician, the actor, the painter, the sculptor. You have to accept them with their foibles, because if they are going to be this genius level talent, God's not, or whatever you want to call it, is not going to give them all of the talents. Yeah. There are going to be deficiencies and blind spots. Yeah. So take it all in good stead, because that's what you get. Yeah. That's what you want. You want to go out on a Saturday or a weekend day with your partner and watch a film and be moved, or cue it up on your big screen at home, and you want to have an emotional reaction. You want to watch a good movie, not just some sort of shoot 'em up action flick. You have to accept the foibles. Okay, so that's kind of my little lecture screen on how people sort of like lambaste or pigeonhole actors in a, I can speak as an actor, like in ways that are not productive. Back to the advice to young actors about what to do. So start building your inventory, start doing stuff, build your filmography, and then back to the networking. Start making friends, start networking. Have a website, have cards, have tangible things too that you can give out. Do favors for people. Do some stuff that doesn't have a dollar figure attached to it. Not all the time, clearly, but do some stuff that, as a favor. Build up your roster of favors, because you'll be able to call favors, and you're going to need that at some stage. Yeah, and I think that is, I'm so glad you said that point, because I think that's a big thing that a lot of people go wrong. They refuse to do. Sometimes you have to. I feel like if you're so passionate about what you do in these creative industries, you have to give so much more than you're probably ever going. You hope that you're going to get out of it eventually. But you have to give so much more. To, like you said, to it's that get up and go attitude of you're not going to do this opportunity just because you're not getting paid for it. It's like sometimes, I think it's a balance between the two, right? But I think some people get so let down by that side of things sometimes that they refuse, right? Have an income.
Yeah, of course.
Income is cool.
Of course, yeah.
Making money's cool.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. But, it's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And it's like chucking a pebble into a pond. It's rippling. Yeah. So like the ripple effect is very key. Yeah. And when you do, and in life as well, sort of more profoundly, when you do good things for people, and when you do charitable acts, or if you do magnanimous things, then it will have this wonderful ripple effect. And I would much rather prefer to live in a world like that, where everything is boiled down to a crass transactional activity. And again, I'm not knocking income. Income's great. I love income. Yeah. Just if everything's transactional, then it steals a little bit of the magic. Because, especially cinema, right? Because we're talking about movies. Like, cinema's magic. Yeah. Like, what's the thing? Like, when I was a kid, my daddy would take me to these, like, the cinema, man, and the lights go down and the curtains part.
Yeah, totally. And as a kid, that whole experience is a special thing. That's why I think it's great that a lot of they're trying their best to bring people back into cinema, and I think it's working a lot of the time, right? Yeah. I get the impression it is that they're doing cinema only releases of movies and stuff.
One room cinema house, like the Royal or the Paradise, or or Isabel Bader Theater at the U of T. It's wonderful.
Yeah, totally. And it is, and especially when you're a kid and you're feeling, you're hearing the rumble of the surround sound and thing. I always, for me, it was always back in the UK. It was always watching the new James Bond movie. Right. It used to just be such an amazing, exciting experience. Coming out of that and watching that great thing. Like
I mentioned, Besson's La Femme Nikita. Yeah. We watched that in the retrospective a TIFF on 35 millimeter.
Yeah.
So you got all the gorgeous grainy
of course.
character of the film.
Yeah.
And the imperfections.
Yeah.
And I think in the playback there were, because that was the only print that's in existence, so a couple of skips in it, you know.
Yeah,
but like delicious skips, you know.
Yeah, totally.
So, you know, so that experience is very important, and that's what we do. So you need to preserve the magic of it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what causes people, because film transforms people. Mm-hmm. It's a transformational experience. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about being an actor is, and this happened to me when I was coming up, is you're watching what's happening on that screen and it's affecting you.
Yeah.
And as the filmmaker, you don't know who's out there.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who's going to be consuming your project. Yeah. But you are affecting people. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, very profoundly.
Yeah.
And you're changing their life in some instances. Yeah. I can remember being in cinemas, and I can't even list the number of times where I was moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I just came back from LA and I watched One Life with Sir Anthony Hopkins, which is a recounting of a true story of Sir Nicholas Winton in the UK during the war. Yeah. And I'm an actor, and I had an emotional, like I was crying watching the film. Yeah. You're affecting people. Yeah. Like this is, I mean, it's a serious thing. Yeah. So that part of the job motivates me tremendously. That you're not just making, again, I use that word, sausage. Yeah. Like it's not content.
Yeah, yeah.
I get it from the streamer's perspective.
No,
that's how they call
100%.
It, right?
Yeah, it's not content. I think there's somebody said the same thing about music. Is being a music artist is the same thing. You know, you're not making content. You're making art. You know, you're making art, and your passion projects. You know,
culture is very important for the human organism.
Totally, yeah. It shapes society.
It's necessary. It's like the spiritual component of life. Yeah. Like you can't see it, but it's there. Yeah. And it's affecting you. Yeah. So I always have that thought paramount, you know, when I'm doing stuff, a front of mind that is, I always have that idea when I'm doing things, because I realize that what I'm doing is making an impact. Yeah. And, you know, as we get better at doing what we do at Razzmatazz, with our collaborators with Hillrose Street and other collaborators, we try to get better at that. Yeah. You know, we try to put ourselves into the audience's shoes to the best, to the extent that we can. And knowing that people are going to walk out of things different than when they walked in. Yeah. And that's what I love about movies. Magic. And that's what gets me to fucking leap out of bed at like 6 a.m. and I'm like, fucking let's go. Like let's rock and roll. And grab it, like people are like, you know, don't you need to sleep? I'm like, no, I can fucking I broke down in tears like just thinking about it, like when we wrapped World Without End here up the street, and we wrapped you know, and I started crying. Like, we were drinking brewskis, and I just started crying, and so then Erin starts crying, and then a couple of the makeup artists start crying, magical, and they're like, what's the matter? And I'm just like, I could do this all day.
That's the magic
every
of it,
day.
Brilliant.
Like, you know, just getting emotional just thinking about it. Like I could do this all day, every day. Yeah. And it's not a job for me, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like so coming here, like the other day we came to your facility, and you know, and Erin did some ADR lines for World Without End. Like I could do this all. I could sit there all day just listening to you guys do the business, right?
Great. Yeah. So, we enjoyed it thoroughly. World Without End. So for the guys listening, when can we expect to see it in some form of? You know, we're very excited for the premiere, of course, but when can people expect to see it?
Well, it's hard to say. Yeah. Because the projections for this film are that it is going to sell and it's going to do well. Where it's going to stream, we're not sure yet. Yeah. So things you can watch in the meantime. Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, totally. That's what it's about.
You can watch the trailer at the following URL, www.oetrailer.com. World Without End trailer, www.oetrailer.com. You can watch a trailer. Yeah. You can go to Razzmatazz of Real and watch some of the BTS that we've done around the set, so you can see kind of the vibe. Amazing. The color, the music, the sound design.
We'll link all this down below as well in comments and everything, guys, so you can check that out.
You can follow me on Instagram, because I'm posting constantly about stuff that I'm doing, which is at The Real ADM, which are my initials, at The Real ADM. And hopefully sooner rather than later. We're not going to sit too long. Yeah. You know, we're going to make a deal, and then we're going to move forward. Amazing. And I think it will definitely be available for streaming in 2025.
Amazing.
And most likely early 2025.
Yeah.
Based on how we like to roll. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like a good forecast. It's not going to take us long to get on those platforms. And I'd even go so far, because you probably have this ready to go pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If anybody would like to attend the screening, please get in touch with Danny, and then Danny can forward on the various requests to me, and we can invite you in a +1 out, and you can join us for the event.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
What an opportunity.
And you can come downtown to Toronto and then come out with us after to have a couple of drinks and talk shop.
We're so stoked. Myself and Roman Marconi, who owns the studio. Big shout out to Roman. Thank you so much.
Big shout out to Roman.
Do this.
We love musicians, by the way. So like indie musicians, guys that are performing stuff or composing stuff. Love those guys. I didn't have a need for them on this last picture, but we may have a need for people in the future. So they're always the hardest guys to lock down because they're busy doing stuff. But if anybody's a musician and wants to get into film or wants to do performance stuff or film, please contact me, because I could always use like a really good bunch of musicians in the roster. Yeah,
great. That's what we're all about here at Halo, and Tones of the Hammer. Trying to network and, like, you know, as you've mentioned many times during this interview, you know, get to know people. There's a lot of talented people I'm finding in Southern Ontario, and we all everybody can offer somebody something, right, in some way or another. So be sure to check out World Without End. And Adam, thank you so much for coming down. I know you're so busy at the minute, my friend, so I much appreciate your time. Send my regards on to Erin and Jesse. Are they going to be at the premiere, I take it? Yeah, so I'll be very excited to see those guys there. But thank you again for coming down, guys. Be sure to check Adam out on all socials, his production company, of course, and World Without End. It's a very cool film. You're going to love it. Very, very amazing. We're excited to see it. Adam, again, thank you so much. Guys, be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed already to Tones of the Hammer, where we talk about all things Hamilton and the surrounding areas. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.